You are looking live at Launch Pad 6, Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, where a three-stage Soyuz 2.1A booster stands fully fueled, ready for launch just 22 minutes from now on a two-day journey to deliver 2.8 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the residents of the International Space Station. Good afternoon from Mission Control in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room. That Soyuz booster was fueled for launch several hours ago by technicians down in Baikonur in the Central Asian desert. It is just after midnight Baikonur time on the 4th of July. It is quite sultry in this summer evening out there, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, partly cloudy skies for the liftoff of the Soyuz and the Progress 92 resupply craft. That launch scheduled at 2:32 and 40 seconds p.m. Central Time. That's 32 minutes and 40 seconds after midnight Baikonur time on Friday morning. The Soyuz booster and the Progress resupply craft, encapsulated in the upper stage of that three-stage rocket, rolled out to the pad on Tuesday, where technicians worked to hook up electrical lines and fuel lines and make final preparations for the liftoff of the Progress. That launch will carry the Soyuz booster arcing out to the northeast of the Baikonur Cosmodrome into an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator, and again beginning a 34-orbit two-day journey to reach the International Space Station for what is expected to be an automated docking at 4:27 p.m. Central Time on Saturday afternoon. The Soyuz booster, by the way, is emblazoned with the logo of the Apollo-Soyuz mission, which is just 2 weeks away from marking the 50th anniversary of that historic spaceflight. On July 15, 1975, the Soyuz spacecraft with Alexei Leonov and Valery Kubasov on board launched first from Baikonur, followed 7.5 hours later by the Apollo spacecraft with Tom Stafford, Vance Brand, and Deke Slayton on board. That was the precursor to the international cooperation that has existed for the past 5 decades, and of course, which is seen today aboard the International Space Station. On board the station at this hour, the Expedition 73 crew led by Takuya Onishi, the commander of the station from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, 3 NASA astronauts, Anne McClain, Nicole Ayers, and Johnny Kim, and 3 Roscosmos cosmonauts, Sergei Ryzhikov, Kirill Peskov, and Alexei Zubritsky, and the 4 crew members of the Axiom 4 private astronaut mission, former NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson, India's Shubhanshu Shukla, Poland's Slavoj Znansky-Wisniewski, and Hungary's Tibor Kapu, all on board the 11 crew members who will be watching and waiting for the arrival of this uncrewed Progress resupply craft on Saturday afternoon. We're just 19 minutes and 5 seconds away from the liftoff of 92 Progress. The countdown has been going very smoothly. Some of the highlights that we will be seeing over the next few minutes leading to the liftoff itself will first occur at about the T-minus 5-minute 30-second mark, when launch control at the blockhouse in Baikonur will report that the range in Baikonur is clear and that the Soyuz rocket is ready to begin its journey. About 30 seconds later, onboard systems will be switched to onboard control, and at the T-minus 4-minute mark, the fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines will be purged with nitrogen to fireproof them by removing vapors of fuel and oxidizer. About 1 minute and 15 seconds after that, at the T-minus 2-minute 45-second mark, the booster's fuel tanks will be pressurized for flight, optimizing the flow of fuel and helping to add structural support to the rocket. The ground propellant feed will be terminated at the T-minus 1-minute 30-second mark, just before the Soyuz booster is placed on internal power. About 35 seconds before liftoff, the first of 2 umbilical towers buttressed up against the side of the Soyuz booster will retract. That will initiate auto sequence start. About 15 seconds later, the second umbilical tower will be retracting as well, and that will initiate engine start. The engines will come up to flight speed, the hold-down posts will be retracted, and the Soyuz booster and the Progress 92 spacecraft will be on their way. The Progress is also now on autonomous power down in Baikonur. The first 8 minutes and 45 seconds of flight to deliver the Progress into its preliminary orbit, where it will deploy its solar arrays and navigational antennas. The launch phase is operated by the engineers at the blockhouse in Baikonur. As soon as the Progress reaches orbit and it separates from the third stage of the Soyuz booster, control will be turned over to the flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow for the rest of the two-day journey to the International Space Station. There you see a view from a balcony camera overlooking the International Space Station flight control room in Korolyov outside of Moscow, and you see on the lower right-hand corner of the front screen, that's the Apollo-Soyuz logo, just as it is emblazoned on the side of the Soyuz booster, marking the 50th anniversary of the Apollo-Soyuz mission.
Первый. Есть переход на бортовое питание. 60-й. Доклад 60-го принял. Первый.
You're hearing communications from the blockhouse in Baikonur. Of course, this is an uncrewed vehicle carrying 2.8 tons of food, fuel, and supplies. It will dock on Saturday afternoon to the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. That docking port was vacated on July 1st, 2 days ago, with the departure and deorbit of the older Progress 90 cargo craft that had arrived at the station a few months ago. So Progress 92 will dock to the Poisk module. That is scheduled to be an automated docking with the link-up scheduled on Saturday afternoon at 4:27 p.m. Central Time, 5:27 p.m. Eastern Time. We're approaching the T-minus 15-minute mark in the countdown. Again, everything has been going very smoothly. We are expecting a liftoff at 2:32 and 40 seconds p.m. Central Time, 3:32 and 40 seconds p.m. Eastern Time, 32 minutes and 40 seconds after midnight on Thursday on Friday, I should say, in Baikonur. Some of the ascent milestones that you'll be hearing as we go uphill with the Progress 92 cargo craft. The first stage of the three-stage Soyuz booster will separate at the 1 minute 57 second mark. At the 3 minute 4 second mission mark, the launch shroud will be jettisoned. That is the shroud, basically the clamshell-like shroud that encompasses and envelops the Progress at the top of the third stage of the vehicle. Second stage shutdown will occur at the 4 minute 37 second mark into the flight, followed 10 seconds later by the separation of the second stage. The third stage engine will be burning at that point. The skirt enveloping the third stage of the Soyuz booster will separate at the 4 minute 57 second mark, and the last milestone will be the third stage shutdown and orbital insertion of the Progress 92 cargo craft 8 minutes and 45 seconds into the mission. The third stage separation of the Soyuz booster from the Progress will occur 4 seconds later at 8 minutes and 49 seconds, followed seconds later by the command to deploy the Progress's solar arrays and navigational antennas. For a 34-orbit 2-day journey, the launch window today down in Baikonur is 25 seconds long. You can see the Soyuz venting liquid oxygen from the first stage of the booster. Everything is proceeding on track as we approach the T-minus 13-minute mark in the countdown. Once the Progress arrives at the International Space Station for its automated docking to the Poisk module on Saturday afternoon, the cosmonauts aboard the station will conduct leak checks at both sides of the docking interface between the Progress and Poisk before opening the hatch and beginning the process of unloading the cargo that's on board. Again, 2.8 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the crew members on board the International Outpost. This Progress resupply vehicle is expected to remain docked to the station for approximately 6 months or so before it departs much later this year. This delivery run, once again, part of the continuing chain of resupply craft that maintain an ongoing supply of food, fuel, and supplies and dry goods for the crew members on board the station, along with a surplus that is used to prevent any shortfall of any food or other supplies for the crew members on board the International Complex. Once the Progress arrives in its preliminary orbit, a series of pre-programmed engine firings called DV burns, or delta velocity burns, will be conducted that will incrementally raise the altitude of the Progress to match that of the International Space Station before we go into what is known as automated rendezvous operations at mid-afternoon on Saturday. At the moment, the International Space Station and its 11 occupants are flying 260 statute miles over the South Pacific, about to begin a southwest and northeasterly swing in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator.
Готовность к пуску 5 минут. Первый. Готовность к пуску 5 минут принял 20-й. Готовность к пуску 5 минут принял 30-й. Готовность к пуску 5 минут принял 50-й. Готовность к пуску 5 минут принял 60-й. Готовность к пуску 5 минут принял 70-й. Принята готовность к пуску 5 минут. Первый.
We've just passed the 10-minute mark in the countdown, approaching 9 minutes 45 seconds before liftoff. Once again, you can barely make it out, but you can see the umbilical, one of the two umbilicals that is buttressed up against the side of the Soyuz booster, the 2.1A booster, out on Launch Pad 6 at Site 31 in Baikonur. That taller of the two umbilicals will retract at about the T-minus 35 second mark, followed some 20 seconds later by the second umbilical that will trigger the beginning of the engine firing sequence that will enable the engines on the first stage to come up to flight speed and command the hold down posts to be released, allowing the Soyuz to take flight. All is quiet here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room at Mission Control. Flight Director Fiona Antkowiak polled her team of flight controllers of the Orbit 2 team about 40 minutes ago and gave a go for launch. That was relayed to the Russian flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. And we've just passed the 8-minute mark in the countdown. All quiet at the blockhouse in Baikonur. A number of activities about to get underway over the next few minutes in preparation for engine ignition and liftoff.
Минутная Доклады руководитель работ принял. 60-й, с брошенного объекта. Есть брошенного объекта, 60-й.
Countdown clocks continue to tick backward. We're at T-minus 6 minutes, 45 seconds before launch.
Есть готовность систем комплекса 30-й. Первый, с брошенного объекта проведен. Замечаний нет. Космический аппарат к запуску готов. 60-й. Доклады руководителя работ принял. Первый. Ключ на старт. Есть ключ на старт 30-й.
T-minus 5 minutes, 45 seconds before launch. We're coming up on the milestone of launch control down in Baikonur, reporting that the range is clear and that the Soyuz rocket is ready to begin its journey. We are at the T-minus 5 minute mark in the countdown. Onboard systems now switching to onboard control in the Soyuz booster. Again, this is a 3-stage rocket. The first stage will burn for about 1 minute and 57 seconds before separating. The second stage engine will have ignited to continue the journey uphill for the Progress, an 8-minute, 45-second journey to deposit the resupply craft into its preliminary orbit. Passing the T-minus 4 minute mark in the countdown. The fuel lines on the Soyuz, other elements of the rocket engines now being purged with nitrogen. Everything ready in Baikonur for a midsummer's night launch to deliver the Progress 92 cargo craft and 2.8 tons of food, fuel, and supplies to the residents of the International Space Station. Approaching the T-minus 3 minute mark in the countdown. Mark, T-minus 3 minutes. The booster's fuel tanks soon to be pressurized for flight. T-minus 2 minutes, 30 seconds and counting.
Наддув. Есть наддув 70-й. Есть розгадуем блока и 70-й. Есть надув общий 30. Есть надув общий 70. Есть сброс ШАО, система измерения 70.
T-minus 2 minutes and counting. 2 minutes from launch. Just a few seconds from now, the ground propellant feed will be terminated to the rocket. The booster and the Progress itself on autonomous power. T-minus 90 seconds. Coming up on the 1 minute mark. Mark, 1 minute and counting. About 20 seconds away from the first umbilical retraction.
Земля борт. Есть переход блока И на бортовое питание, персона. Есть отрыв холодный в пневмоколоннах блока И. Есть мачта, персона.
And there's the retraction of that first umbilical. T-minus 25 seconds and counting, just a few seconds away from the second umbilical retracting. That begins the engine sequence start. And we have engine ignition. The engine's coming up to flight speed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff. Liftoff of the Progress 92 cargo craft bound for the International Space Station. The Soyuz booster arcing out to the northeast. Roll, pitch, and yaw all nominal. Engine performance nominal as the Soyuz heads downrange. 37 seconds into the flight, all parameters reported to be normal from the blockhouse in Baikonur. Punching a hole through the clouds, heading into an orbit 51.6 degrees inclined to the equator. Engine chamber pressure is nominal. We've passed the 1 minute mark into the flight. Yaw, pitch, and roll all reported to be nominal. Passing through the area of maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle. 1 minute 25 seconds into the flight. About 25 seconds remaining in first stage performance. Everything looking good on the Soyuz booster, standing by for first stage SEP. And we have confirmation of first stage separation on time. Two minutes, 16 seconds into the flight. Second stage up and running. Good stabilization on the vehicle reported. So far, all of the structural parameters reported to be normal from the engineers at the blockhouse in Baikonur. Second stage performance is by the book according to the 6 minutes of powered flight remaining.
Стабилизация изделия устойчивая. 180. Параметры конструкции ракеты-носителя в норме.
3 minutes, 11 seconds into the flight, everything going well. The launch shroud has been jettisoned. The Progress being propelled uphill on the power of the second stage engine on the Soyuz 2.1A booster. 3.5 minutes into the flight.
Управление ракеты-носителя в норме. 220. Полет нормальный. Время КП 22 часа.
5 minutes of powered flight remaining. Nothing but good reports coming from the blockhouse in Baikonur so far.
Стабилизация изделия устойчивая.
We've now passed the 4-minute mark into the flight. The liftoff time was right on the money at 2:32 and 40 seconds p.m. Central Time. Second stage performance continues to be nominal according to the engineers in Baikonur. You're looking at a live view from a balcony camera at the Russian Mission Control Center in the town of Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow. Those flight controllers will take over control of the vehicle, the Progress itself, following its separation from the third stage of the Soyuz booster.
280. Прошел гарантийный наддув бока кипятителя третьей ступени. 290. Есть запуск двигателя.
And we have confirmation of the shutdown of the second stage engine. The Soyuz being propelled now by the third stage engine. There you see the second stage, the third stage skirt jettison, and that view on the center screen of the Russian Mission Control Center. 5 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight, everything looking good so far.
Параметры конструкции ракеты-носителя в норме.
5.5 minutes into the flight. So far, so good.
Работает нормально.
The Progress being propelled uphill by its third stage engine on the Soyuz 2.1A booster. 3 minutes of powered flight remaining. Now we have a better view from the camera on the upper stage of the Soyuz booster. If we hold this view, we should be able to see third stage shutdown, spacecraft separation, and the deployment of the solar arrays on the Progress itself. 6 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight, 2.5 minutes of powered flight remaining.
Двигатель третьей ступени работает нормально.
Third stage engine performance is nominal.
390. Параметры системы управления ракеты-носителя в норме. 400. Стабилизация изделия устойчивая.
6 minutes, 48 seconds into the flight, just 2 minutes of powered flight remaining. So far, everything has gone by the book, all of the milestones having been passed in trip hammer fashion. The yaw, pitch, and roll, all good. Good structural stability on the Soyuz booster's third stage. 7 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight. Seven minutes, 45 seconds into the flight. 1 minute of powered flight remaining. We're expecting third stage shutdown at the 8-minute 45-second mark, followed just seconds later by spacecraft separation. Passing 8 minutes into the flight. Eight minutes, 15 seconds into the flight, 30 seconds of powered flight remaining. All the parameters on the third stage looking good. The third stage engine beginning to tail off now as we stand by for third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. Third stage shutdown confirmed. And spacecraft separation. The command should be issued momentarily for the initiation of the deployment of the solar arrays and navigational antennas on the Progress. And there they go. And we have confirmation that all the two solar arrays and all of the navigational antennas have now been deployed. So it was an uneventful and smooth ride uphill for the Progress 92 cargo craft. It is now on its way for a 2-day journey and a delivery run to the International Space Station. Once again, the launch occurred on time at 2:32 and 40 seconds p.m. Central Time. That was 32 minutes and 40 seconds a.m. right after midnight at Baikonur on Friday morning. The Progress soon, as we see our first view from the external TV camera on the Progress, looking out at the limb of the Earth. This camera will come into more significant use on Saturday during the final phase of rendezvous and the docking of the Progress to the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. And the Progress's Core's automated rendezvous system is now in its test mode per the timeline. If all goes as planned, the Progress will reach the neighborhood of the International Space Station at mid-afternoon on Saturday and begin a fly around of the station to align its forward docking probe with the Poisk module for an automated link up to the Poisk at 4:27 p.m. Central Time, 5:27 p.m. Eastern Time. Back here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room here in Mission Control in Houston, the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers now settling in for the remainder of its shift for the day. It's been an off-duty day for the crew on board the International Space Station. The launch of the Progress 92 cargo craft occurred on time at 2:32 and 40 seconds p.m. Central Time. Everything went perfectly on the ride uphill. An 8-minute 45-second ride to deliver the Progress into its preliminary orbit. The Progress now will execute a pre-programmed series of engine firings to raise its altitude, eventually to match that of the International Space Station for the final phase of the rendezvous and the eventual docking of the Progress to the Poisk module on Saturday afternoon. With that, here's a look at our docking coverage on NASA Plus on Saturday. We'll go on the air at 4:45 p.m. Eastern Time, 3:45 p.m. Central. Docking is expected at 5:27 p.m. Eastern Time, 4:27 p.m. Central Time on Saturday. So, amidst your holiday weekend plans, please tune in to us on Saturday, and we'll bring you along as the newest cargo craft arrives at the International Space Station with 2.8 tons of food, fuel, and supplies. For now, we'll sign off for our coverage of this launch of the Progress 92. Have a great 4th of July. That's it. We'll sign off. This is Mission Control in Houston.